Hello, hello, and welcome to another edition of our deconditioning series. This week, we have a topic that is very near and dear to my heart. Even before I found human design, I thought mindfulness was such a giant game changer for how I felt day to day, how my thoughts were going, and just like overall better sense of well being. So, without further ado, I am going to introduce to you a wonderful friend of mine who is also so wise and just has all the insights. You'll see when you meet her. And when she told me she can actually talk at length about mindfulness, I gasped out loud and I'm like, no, 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 no. You don't understand. I have been hunting for someone to talk about mindfulness. You are supposed to be here. So without further ado, let's get the amazing, my fellow emotional manifester, Jenny, on stage. Hello.
Hello.
I am so excited to have you on. You have no idea.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me and inviting me, and I'm excited.
Right? Amazing. So one thing that I want everybody to know about is what you just told me while we were in sound check, which was about mindfulness not actually being a modality. So if you want to give a little blurb about what that means.
Oh, totally. I feel like that's a huge misconception, but mindfulness isn't really, it's not a modality. It's not like EFT tapping or yoga. It's I like to say that mindfulness is it's like the secret sauce that you can put on everything that just deepens and enhances the connection to whatever it is that you're doing. So, really, I think the way I put it was like mindfulness is a mindset. It is an approach to connect with whatever the modality, whatever it is that you're doing. It can be applied to everything.
That's amazing. So, what I'm going to have you do is explain to everybody what you have going on and where they can find you and give you the stage to do so.
Yes. Well, thank you again for having me. So I can be found. I have a website. It has been a labor of love. And I have a website. It is jennyjacksonhealing.com. So you can first and foremost, you can find me there. On that, you will be able to connect with me. Mostly my baby, my pride and joy right now is my online course that I am launching. It is called the Zen Flamingo Wellness Academy, and it has been such a labor of love, and that can be found on the website jennyjacksonhealing.com. um so that is what I was telling Moana about the course, and the very first module of the course is mindfulness. And it's there for a very good reason. In the course, I talk mindfulness. I also do a brief intro of human design. It dives into nervous system regulation and it dives into subconscious healing. But being that mindfulness is the secret sauce, that is definitely the first module in the course. It is laying the groundwork for absolutely everything else that I go into. It's an 8-week self guided course and it launches on January 6th. So I am stoked to promote that. And answering your other question, you can also find me on Instagram at Jenny Jackson.
There you go. It's right underneath. Okay, so
There you
now you
go.
know what Jesse, my brain. Jesse's my son's name. What Jenny is up to and where you can find her, which is all very
Mhm.
exciting. Now, if you can let us know, so let's get right into mindfulness. So, what I want you to tell me is tell me about your journey. So the journey that led you to mindfulness, and just paint us a picture.
Oh man, it's a journey. We all have a journey, don't we?
Right?
Yeah, so my journey, it really started. So my husband and I, we've been together 20 years. Don't worry, I'm not going to go back 20 years. But it was a long time ago. No, my husband and I, we've been together for 20 years. We've been married for 14. We've been parents for almost 12 years. So I have an almost 12-year-old daughter and a 10-year-old son. And so I have been a full-time parent for almost 12 years. And
It's a
I think,
non-sacral mommy. Oof.
yeah, I was going to mention, I think any manifester on here knows that those manifester wounds run deep. And as with a lot of manifestors, it's almost like I don't want to not be truthful in the fact that motherhood didn't necessarily come easy. And not having that sacral energy, I wish I knew what that was. I wish I knew that was an actual thing back then. But the transition from, working young adult to full-time parent did not come easy for me, and it wasn't a smooth transition. And it was riddled with anxiety. It was riddled with just absolute fatigue that piggybacks on top of years of, I have had chronic anxiety for as long as I remember. So it was like that manifestor wound on top of the history of OCD, perfectionism, anxiety, all the things. And so 12 years ago, we had such major life changes. We had kids, we moved across the country. I found myself to be kind of on an island with two little babies. We had our kids 19 months apart, and it was a crazy, unaligned time for me. So I was just riddled with physical and mental issues that, were quite the journey. And it was about 2017, I dove into fitness. Like, I was going to get rid of that mom bod. I was going to, get rid of the baby weight. And I found a fitness MLM, and I poured my creative juices and my manifestor energy. Like, I poured myself into that. And it was great for so many things. It led me on this very path that I'm on, but it introduced hustle culture, and it introduced, like, I didn't know it at the time, but I was really, really conditioned to operate like a generator. And it took me down. And it's the hustle culture and the fitness culture, and I'm not slamming any of it, but it was not my path, and I had to learn it the hard way that it wasn't what was meant for me. My worth at the time was very much tied to achievements and paychecks, and so without going too deep, because there's a lot more to share here, I was nothing was enough. So the side hustle turned into, I also wanted to work a part-time job. I also wanted to, kind of like accumulate titles and feel value there, when really I was just burning myself out. So long story short, I got COVID, and then my body was like, "You done." And it was over. End of story. I got COVID and my body crashed. Done. End of story. And I had to really take a look at what was going on to figure out why I couldn't heal. And intuitively, I was just like, my nervous system is done. And I like didn't even know what that meant at the time. I didn't know what that meant. I just was like, I know intuitively I short circuited the system. We're done. And so from there, I really started like Googling like I have never Googled before. And everything that was being drawn to me was like, heal your nervous system, regulate your nervous system, regulate your nervous system. And of all the things, like mindfulness kept popping up, mindfulness, mindfulness, mindfulness. So at the time, I was about 6 months into long COVID, and I was just like, we're diving in. And still, like at that time, I didn't know, I hadn't been introduced to human design yet. But like I had a creative urge. I had that energy to be like, I am going to dive in to figuring this thing out like I have never figured it out before. And so I just researched all the things, and it was like a beautiful just onslaught of all the things came at me. I dove fully into mindfulness and learning what that actually meant, like the difference between mindfulness and meditation. And I was fortunate that like I got bombarded with just the most beautiful modalities all came at me, and I had a really beautiful like spiritual awakening, realizing the connectedness of all the things. And so it was really pretty awesome to start blending what I was learning about each thing. And then shoot, I got into a container with my guide, and she taught me all about human design, and I was just like like mind blown. And I realized how conditioned I really was. And I realized I had a lot to decondition. And the secret sauce on all of it was mindfulness. It was being incredibly aware of what was happening right here and right now. So, yeah, which led us here.
I realize my mic is muted. That wouldn't help anyone.
I was like, oh gosh, what did I push? I pushed something on my
No,
tangent, and now
that
I can't hear her.
that was a me thing. No. So the next thing I was going to ask you is, so you said you found all these modalities kind of like at the same time.
Yes.
So what kind of drew you more into mindfulness versus like the other things you found?
Well, if I remember accurately, the mindfulness came first because anytime you look into quote unquote regulating your nervous system, the same kind of like onslaught of, go out in nature, be mindful. And I was like, but what does that mean? What does that mean to be mindful? Like what does that mean? Like what are you actually telling me? And
Hmm.
so I just started getting really curious, and I found a course. So I joined this container, this beautiful container that I learned all about human design. And we went through every energy center and we just worked that puppy, and it was beautiful. At the same time, I saw this beautiful quote that was like, if you want to learn something, teach it. And I was like,
Hmm.
okay, okay, well, I really want to learn what it really truly is to embody mindfulness. And so I also joined a course. I'm sure that somewhere in my human design chart, by the way, that I'm like a compulsive course taker. And
I know exactly where in your chart that is, but I'm
I
sure
knew you
Danny
would.
can what's the word? He'll corroborate. That's the one. I was like, what's that word? Yes.
Y- Yeah, it's really a thing. And so I was simultaneously taking many courses, but I was taking the course on mindfulness to really learn the intricacies and the components and what it really was, because I was like, I want to know this well enough that I can share this goodness and pass it along to somebody else. So I just dove into this course, and in the back of my mind, it was like, okay, I'm going to dive into this in with the thought that, being the manifester, I also want to create a mindfulness course that I can share with other people. And then in the past 2 years, that kind of morphed to, but like, I want to share human design too, and I want to share how to regulate. So that's why the Zen Flamingo, little, it's, it's not overloaded on any of the subjects, but it's just enough on each, and it goes in the very order that I used to like come back to life. And so the mindfulness is always going to be the heart. I mean, mindfulness is truly the heart of everything in that course, because EFT tapping doesn't mean anything if you're not here in that moment. Like, how many I have EFT tapped and I was like not in it, and I'm like, I don't even know if any of this is like hitting anything it's supposed to. Or pick a modality. How many times are in yoga and you're just so somewhere else that it's not impactful? And so um mindfulness was just so near and dear because it literally applies to everything. And once you kind of lock in and figure out your system, how to kind of like lock in, it's the secret sauce, man.
Oh my, so some of us might be like, okay, so she's talking about mindfulness, but like, what does that actually mean?
What is
So,
it? What
give us
is
a
it?
whole note version of what it is and what some core pillars are. Give us I
Yes.
guess, the structure of it.
All right. All right. Well, I like, so this isn't the technical, but I liken mindfulness. Mindfulness is like tuning in. It's like when you think that you hit a radio station and you're like, oh, it sounds great. And then you like dial it in just a tweak more, and you're like hearing it so much clearer and so much louder. And mindfulness is tuning in. And really what that means, it's so it's so simple. Mindfulness is just gentle moment to moment awareness. It is being locked in right here, right now. It's just the opportunity to welcome the present moment without judgment. And that is really the key, is doing so openly and not judging what is actually happening, just being attuned to really what is in your space, what's in your reality. And it's really the here and the now. It is really focusing on a better balance between the past, the present, and the future. And so it's distinguishing, and it's really tuning in and noticing and learning how to notice when they say mindfulness, the present is here and now. It's figuring out when you're not here, you're there. So if you are lost in the past, or you're focusing on the future and you're not here, mindfulness is that gentle little nudge that's like, okay, hi, here we are. We're right here. And it's a way to anchor down and get off of whatever train of thought or wherever you were. It brings you back right here, right now. And it's so beautiful.
Oh, that is a lovely way to look at it. So, what I want to know is you were talking about, all the different not so pleasant things you were experiencing, right? So, how did mindfulness change you from all of those experiences being your regular way of life? And like, oh, I'm just an anxious person, or
Mhm.
I'm just a person that needs everything to be obsessively the way I want it. How did you take that way of being and shift it after you started practicing mindfulness?
It was really a matter of looking at things objectively. It was a matter of not labeling myself as I am angry, I am this, I am that. It was looking at it from a widened out lens and being like, I am feeling angry. I'm experiencing angry. I are experiencing anger. You know, it was the separation, and really what I think a really, really beautiful component of mindfulness is when we can separate and realize like we're the observer. Like you can really zoom out and be like, thoughts are thoughts.
Yeah, that
Some
goes
thoughts,
right into human design, right?
oh,
The
yes,
passenger consciousness.
yes. And that's when I was learning all of these things. And when I was learning them simultaneously, I was like having so many like, oh my God. Like I have tapped into this frequency and I'm seeing it so clearly. Like it all goes together. But like realizing your thought isn't always going to be fact. Thoughts are just thoughts. And when you can zoom out and become the observer, and really like in the course I talk about how, you know, our attention, we illuminate it with like, this is my flashlight, I'm holding a flashlight
Mm,
right now if you're
yeah.
wondering what I'm doing. But you realize I'm the one that's holding the flashlight here, and my awareness,
Ooh.
my gentle moment to moment awareness,
Mm-hmm.
it can be a thought, it can be the TV, it can be my child. It, you know, your awareness goes wherever. Generally, it's whatever's the loudest. But ultimately, when you realize, like, oh, hi, I'm the one that's shining the flashlight, you can start to separate. And so I really feel like for me personally, it started to become a game changer when I was able to separate the thoughts, not like becoming a part, not like an ego thing, not like I am just like this angry, stressed out mom. It was like I was able to separate the thoughts. And you know, there's so many beautiful analogies about thoughts, and it kind of sounds cliche, but when it's really like you can choose
Mm-hmm.
another thought, that's mindfulness. That's being
Mm-hmm.
aware and being like, I choose again.
Mm-hmm.
One, there's 5 components of mindfulness
Mm-hmm.
that I haven't gotten into yet. But like one of the components is choice.
Mm-hmm.
You have a choice, but you can't make that choice unless you're right here. If you're like there, if
You
you're
can't like look at the menu if you haven't even seen it yet.
right, you can, exactly, yes. Or if you don't even know you're in a restaurant.
Well, then that too.
Like,
I'm in the middle of the
and
woods. I'd like a cheeseburger, please. What?
exactly. If you're so, and I found that that's to be really powerful too when I learned this, was really again learning like there is such, and I speak for myself, but I think I can speak for a lot of people when
Mm.
I say we spend so much time disproportionately in the past or in the future,
Oh yeah,
when
I call
really
it doom
like
spiraling.
it you do. And I call it like I'm my train of thought is off the rails.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so mindfulness is this beautiful moment when you're like, oh yeah, my train's off the track, let's put her back on and let's
Mhm.
center, let's anchor, let's figure out our next step. But just mindfulness is awareness. And when we can figure out our thoughts have derailed, our train has left the station, but it is off the rails, mindfulness is this beautiful opportunity to come back to the present moment again and again and again and again. Um, but yeah, it's really a beautiful relationship with your thoughts too, and being like, okay, this also is just a thought. I can choose another one. I'm the one that's churning them out. I can pick again.
Mm-hmm. Okay, perfect. So what was I going to say next? The other thing that I think is going to be fun to explain to people is, so what are some particularly, what's the word I'm looking for? Things that people don't understand about mindfulness, or they might get not quite correct.
Sure. I think one of the biggest misconceptions is people like to lump mindfulness with meditation. It's not the
Oh,
same.
mm-hmm,
It's not the
mm-hmm,
same. And it's kind of fascinating because you can be mindful without meditating, but
mm-hmm,
you can't really successfully meditate if you're not being mindful.
mm-hmm,
And there's a huge difference though. And when I first started, I thought, mindfulness is just meditation. But going back to the secret sauce, you can be mindfully doing anything. You can
mm-hmm,
mindfully have a conversation
mm-hmm,
and truly listen to what is being said rather than being in your head thinking about what you need to make for dinner, or like, so often I was so guilty of being like, okay, what am I going to say next? What am I going to say next? And you're not present. You're not going to
mm-hmm,
fully savor that conversation when you are in your head and you are worrying about those things.
mm-hmm.
Even mindfully eating, like if
Mm,
I made it a point to try to like eat my meals not on my phone and really just sit. And all of this is it's so nurturing and regulating to your nervous system too, to just slow down, but like chew your food. Taste your food.
so there's a whole thing about, like, if you've ever looked into like yogic traditions, that you should chew like X amount of times before you
Yeah, right.
swallow. I can't remember the exact number. I want to say something like crazy high. It was like 14. And I was like, what? I think I do
It's
like
gonna be
4.
mush.
I mean, your digestive system will be much happier because you're supposed to use those teeth.
But yeah, I mean, there's a reason to it. But I mean, even like mindfully eating, like, what does it taste like? Can you
Hmm.
taste your food? Do you taste your food? Or are you just wolfing it down so you can get to the next place that you're supposed to be?
Hmm.
And so I feel like that was a huge aha moment for me. It was like mindfulness is not just sitting down and meditating.
Or
It's
zenning out.
right. It's the sauce. It'll get you to where you want to go quicker. But like even mindfully taking your shower. What does your water feel like? Can you feel it as it hits your body? Like where are you when you're taking your shower? And so I feel like that's a really big, I don't know, like differentiator. Like you can be mindful doing anything. You don't have to
Mhm.
meditate to be mindful.
Yeah, it's just like everyday experiences. So, you have
Mhm.
a very exciting demo plan for us. So, what are some things, I guess, you want people to take away or be noticing when they are going to experience your demo?
So I think the important thing to remember is so I think it's funny too, as I say as I say mindfulness is not meditation, I'm going to do a meditation.
I mean, for demonstration purposes, this is the easiest way to do it.
but, but I think an important thing to notice is just notice your thoughts. What are your thoughts doing as you experiment with this? And I also think that it's really important to remember you can't do it wrong. There's no right or wrong. The practice, the practice is the journey, as they say. The path is the practice, and
Hmm.
so there. When it comes to meditation, I feel like so many people are just so hard on themselves, and they're like, "Well,
Mm.
I can't." I can't settle my mind down.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm doing it wrong. And it's like, but no, 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 no. That means you're doing it right. You are noticing. You're noticing. That
Oh.
means you're doing it right.
Mm-hmm.
And it brings you an opportunity to come back to your breath, come back to the moment, and like circle back. And then that's when the beautiful rewiring happens. That's when the magic happens. So you can't do it wrong is a really important reminder.
Oh, that's